All right. If there's anyone in, can you let me know if the sound's all right? I think I found out what the issue was, but I could be wrong. I'm just going to hang about, I think. I'll do a little song and dance. I'm not going to do a song and dance. If I could sing and dance, I would do a song and dance. So I just started a stream. It was a scheduled stream, and there was loads of feedback, loads of a loop. Somebody finally told me, which was very grateful. Or they maybe told me earlier, and I just hadn't noticed it. So I'm going to delete that older video after this. I'll delete the first one. I don't think I should go in there now to do it. Hopefully no one's going to notice it. Maybe while I'm waiting for people to hop on and someone see this, I will see if I can quickly go on and delete it so nobody accidentally watches it. Gosh, what a rubbish start. So after this is finished recording, it's all been sorted out. I'm going to cut this middle off so we start in the right place. YouTube Studio. Content. So I'm just now waiting for somebody to come on and say that it's sounding all right. Can I edit this? Details. Public. Unlisted private. I don't know if I can update that. All right, there's still nobody on. I might have to get my phone to check if I'm okay. Can I delete that? Oh, it's not that one. I need to change the wrong one. Private. Save. Right, that's now been made private. Wow, what a rubbish start. Hey, sounding good. Thank you very much. Oh, it's the wrong chat now. I was still looking at the old chat. Let me get this chat sorted. And anyone who's watching this live now, you're very lucky because people in the future won't be able to see this nonsense going on. So that's that. Sorry about this. What an amateur. Welcome to Amateur Hour. Chat there. Wow, imagine if I was good with technology, how much easier this would be. Right, so we've got that. We've got that. Everything's good. Thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you for not making me waddle on for hours. I'm going to just put an intro screen up so that I know where to cut the video off at the start, and then I'll start yammering on. Oh, how ridiculous, eh? I don't know if you want me to go over all that again. I guess I have to go over that again. I'll try and be a bit quicker this time. Think of that as a dry run. Stream elements bot running. Learn how to... I don't know why that's running. Neat. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Triumphant 4015, thank you for joining and thank you for letting me know that the sound's better now. I'm going to have to do all that again. I will try and do it a bit quicker, I guess. So this is about church from an Aspie point of view. I've been asked by 2 or 3 people to talk a bit more about Aspie, the Aspie side of it, going to church, but also my upbringing, what I found about church and what my path was to get to where I am at the moment. So I will start by whizzing through this document. So just in case you're watching this on catch up, what happened, I did start doing a live stream, but I had the sound completely balmy and it was very, very bad. So I had to start again. And I was talking for ages before I noticed somebody said it'd gone a bit wonky. Hopefully the chat's all right when the chat comes up. So, sensory, right? There are 4 main categories I've put this into: sensory, social environment, mental processing, and practical. The sensory things are, first on the list is smells. I am very sensitive to smells, especially chemical smells. Some people, especially the older people in church, whose maybe their own sense of smell is diminishing, put on way too much smelly stuff. And if you're sitting near to them, especially if you're an Aspie kid, that is really nasty. And if you imagine one of your grandparents has this issue and they're at church with you and you have to sit on their lap, that is just really, really bad. So if you've got an Aspie kid or you think there's Aspies in your church, just be aware the smells can be really nasty. And what I coupled with that, which is also a bit of an environmental thing, is the air quality. Some churches, the air was really stale, really dusty that I've been in. and it just felt like they never aired the church. And like if they could just an hour or two before the service, just have all the windows open, get some fresh air in. And if it's winter, then fair enough, get some fresh air in, but then close the windows half an hour beforehand, and then you can let the heating do its work. Just a suggestion. Now, most churches, this isn't an issue, especially the larger churches, but sometimes there are some churches, the air is just horrible, horrible, horrible. The sounds, so too many distractions to be able to, yeah, there can be many distractions. Yes, I agree. Let me put the chat up. Zoom in as chat. Zoom in with chat. There you go. That's maybe too much. I'll zoom out again. There are definitely too many distractions. There can be, which is one of the reasons when I go to church and I think where to sit, I normally try and sit at the front so there are fewer visual distractions. And it doesn't bother me that I'm at the front and the vicar or minister looks at me. The further back I am, the more people I have in front of me that can distract me. Now, obviously, when the kids were very young, we'd tend to sit maybe nearer the back or at least nearer a door because we might need to take them out to something, so they might need attention. But on my own or now, I would try and sit near the front, fewer distractions. Let me bring my list back up. It's good that there's only a couple of people watching this. So sounds are a problem. That is, if the PA hasn't been set up very well, so there's a bit of a feedback, or sometimes there's somehow a bit of a ticking noise, or my video I just done, that's a perfect example of how to do bad sound. That can be really irritating. Lights don't affect me. I've never had an issue with light, but I know lights is a real issue for some people. And the old fluorescent tubes some churches had, they can't be sold anymore in the UK and Britain, but some churches may still have them, and they're like, they can flicker very, very fast. Not everyone's aware of it, but some people are just aware of this thing, corner of their eye, and that can give them headaches and be really annoying. Touch. Some charismatic places, people like to come up and hug you. Just some normal churches, someone friendly might want to hug you. A lot of guys, especially boys, don't like that. Aspies, I'm really not into hugging. But apart from the family, don't hug me. And then coupled with this is the greetings on the door. I'm fine for someone to be on the door and say, welcome to the service, or give me a hymn sheet or something. But sometimes they try and grab your hand and shake your hand. And I hated that. That was so difficult for me. I'd have to then, if they managed to get my hand, I didn't have a glove on, I'd have to go and wash my hand before the service. So the way I got around that, when the kids were little, I'd make sure I was carrying the kids in so I couldn't shake their hands. Otherwise, I would sometimes, I think in the end, I just didn't even look at their hand and just pretended I didn't notice they were putting their hand out and then just walk on through, smile and walk on through. But it's not fair to assume that everybody wants to touch your hand. And even if the person whose hand I'm shaking, even if they had good hygiene, the person before who shook their hand, their hygiene might not be good. And you could be touching the hand of someone that another 30 people have already touched. The chances of all 30 of them having good hygiene is probably next to zero. So handshaking is a really nasty thing. Fortunately, something good about the whole lockdown thing and the C-19 stuff went on a few years ago. Handshaking become far less popular. And even with chess, this isn't about chess, but with chess, you have to shake the hand of your opponent before you start. But when the lockdowns happened, we're allowed to fist bump instead. So now I always fist bump. Occasionally someone, especially an old boy, just grab my hand anyway. But generally people are okay with fist bumping. That's why we need to be advocates for autism, so people will understand that not everyone likes to be touched. A smile is absolutely, or just touch your forelock. If you've got a hat, you could tip your hat. Absolutely agree with that. Oh, it is difficult. It was worse growing up because obviously when we were younger, so much more was not known in the mainstream about Asperger's, whereas now a lot more is known, so people can be a bit more accepting. The air quality, if it's too hot, too cold, I didn't like that. I would rather be sitting in church cold than sitting in church and it's hot, because you can always keep your jacket on. I don't mind doing that. But obviously you shouldn't take your t-shirt off in church because you're too hot. That wouldn't be right. At least not in the UK, you couldn't do that. Maybe certain continents, that would be fine. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but you wouldn't do that over here. And then clothes. I have to wear generally cheap clothes, but I have to wear very, very soft clothes because my skin is very, very sensitive. And it was worse when I was younger. And when my mum used to dress me in smart clothes for church, the trousers were pretty much always itchy. And it was really, really difficult. And I'd tell my mum they were itchy. So sometimes she'd let me wear my pajama bottoms underneath my trousers. But generally, I'd wear shorts as much as possible. The shorts weren't itchy material. And of course, the legs were then free. So I would generally try and wear shorts as a kid. But for some reason, smart clothes are really uncomfortable. And like if I go to a wedding now or anything, we have to dress up, I need to be really picky about what I wear. I can't just rent a DJ and put it on, for example. Dinner jacket, in case you didn't know. Small talk is irritating. And in the church setting, what would annoy me, I can take a bit before the service. Hi, how are you? Yeah. How's the week been? Yeah. After the service, don't small talk. Talk about the service. Talk about something interesting you read this week in the Bible or something you heard. What do I think about it? In the church, you should have a load of people there and they should all be interested in the Bible. They should have all heard the same sermon. You've now got something of interest to talk about. Just talk about the sermon. Did you agree with them? Did you not agree with them? What did you learn? That is a great time. These are very interesting things for me to be talking about after a sermon. And I hear somebody talking about the football or the rugby or the state of their garden. It's like, really? Really? I don't care. I hope you're well. I really don't care about that. Just checking. Yeah, so some charismatic churches, they're very much into maybe clapping and raising their hands and doing all sorts of things. I don't have a problem with people doing that. What I don't like is if when they call them a worship leader at the front, tries to get everyone to raise the hand or everyone clap or everyone do this, everyone do that. It's like, no, I don't want to be doing that. I don't mind them saying everyone stand to sing hymn number 53, but trying to manipulate the crowd. And again, with some of the charismatic places I've been to and also seen online, the worship leader, sometimes the songs do all sorts of weird things. They try to get a certain tempo to influence the audience or congregation, whatever you want to call them. And it's just nasty. So I really didn't like that. And that would annoy some Aspies. And so I've been to plenty of services where people were speaking in tongues. I never did that. But I saw them doing it and all sorts going on. It's just, and like Paul said in the Bible about keeping things, he didn't say sensible, he didn't say organized. I can't remember the phrase now. But anyway, you're supposed to have things a certain way. So long services, long sermons, if they're interesting, don't bother me. You could preach a sermon 3-4 hours, I'd be fine. But sometimes there's a lot of stuff either side of the sermon and it can just drag on. And again, some of these songs, some of these choruses, they'll play, but then they'll play the last one again and do the chorus again. Then we'll have just the women, then we'll have just the men. And it just like, it goes on and on and on and on. It's like, really? Some people may really like that. I really didn't like that. I don't know if that's an Aspie thing. It probably is, because I wasn't getting caught up in all the emotional side of things and getting swayed like everyone else. So the processing, goodness me, mental processing, boredom, absolutely. Some people don't know how to preach. Now, on average, I'd say I'm fine with sermons. I can accept they have to preach at maybe a slightly slower pace than I would naturally want, but that's okay because there are others in the congregation. But sometimes they will say something, but then try to drill the point home. They'll say it 2 or 3 different ways. And then they're looking for a reaction of the congregation and people aren't reacting because it's like, yeah, I got that. It's obvious. So they might say it again. And sometimes people speak too slowly. I don't mind people speaking certain different ways. That's fine. But sometimes people will be really slow and it's just like, oh, get on with it. And if they're talking, there might be a sermon in quotes, but it's not biblical based at all. And it's like I've not been to a church where I've done environmental talks, but I know these things go on. It'd be something political, or it is political, but it's hidden as being somehow Christian and this, that, and the other. It's like, that's not what I came for. It's really not what I came for. I tended to mostly avoid, if there was a special talk, we had someone coming in from such and such a place, sometimes I wouldn't go to those just because I know I'm going to really be struggling with that. So I know it's not nice for them, but I just know, yep, I can't do with that. So you might have a Christian midwife coming in to talk about their experiences on the ward. That's a random example. Yeah, I don't want to listen to that. I'm not interested. We went to a church that I'm missing that the pastor always talked about Charlie Brown comics. That's brilliant, Snoopy. Yeah, that's absolutely something. Something that some ministers would do is if they want to do something anecdotal or do some parallel thing, they would pick something, but always from the Bible. So that always keeps it topical. If you talk about something that's current now, like Charlie Brown was then, or maybe something that's going on in the World Cup, it doesn't mean anything in the near future. And it also, not everyone can link onto that. But personally, if somebody threw in a Charlie Brown thing, I think I would find that quite funny. I would sometimes sometimes disagree with what the person was saying. So I've read the Bible several times, many times, and sometimes they'd be saying something and I just disagree from various levels. Partly, I didn't know that. I'll have to check that out. So they could be right. I could be wrong. Absolutely fine. Anything I currently understand about the Bible, I could be wrong. That's my position. But sometimes they'll say something, I think, no, that contradicts the Bible because Paul said this here and that there, and Jesus said that. What you're saying there is just blatantly not true. So then sometimes I would try and talk to the pastor afterwards and say, look, are you, or I'd try and be nice about it. So rather than be confrontational, it'd be something like, how did you reach this conclusion here? Or what did you mean by that? Or, but what about this verse? And occasionally it'd be the case that I just misunderstood them, or perhaps they didn't mean the way it came across. What they meant was something else, and that's fine. But the reason I used to do this was sometimes they may change their mind. And certainly sometimes, I remember one time in Scotland, it was a Free Church of Scotland, the minister gave a sermon about something. And afterwards I said, you said this, that, and the other, but are you aware that links back to the Old Testament where this, that, and the other happened? And then in the evening service, he didn't mention my name, but he then made that link. And I think he'd either forgotten about it or he hadn't even noticed it. But that was nice that he was grateful enough for that. He was our neighbour, but nice man, but did not know God's word. Oh yeah, I've had ministers, when I go through the churches, I'll tell you about some places I've been like that. And that is very scary. Yes, it is very scary what some of the leaders are. It's the blind leading the blind, isn't it, for some people? Now, I've not had a problem. As an Aspie, generally, we have trouble sometimes with metaphors or exaggerations, hyperboles, etc. I've never had that problem with the Bible because from a very young age, as long as I can remember, I was taught the Bible. So I knew what the parables were. I knew about the prophets. So I didn't get caught out of that. But I could certainly see some Aspies, especially if they've only just started going to church, could get caught out when they hear certain things. And it's like, whoa, that seems a bit crazy. But I'm all right with that one. Absolutely. I've got here, this is still mental processing. There is definitely emotional manipulation with some worship services in certain types of church. And it's very obvious to Aspies, or at least some Aspies, it's very obvious they're just trying to... I need to be careful what I say because I know there might be some charismatics watching this, but I've never been to a hypnotist show. But I know when the hypnotist is on stage, they'd be doing their certain tricks, if you like, to start with, and they'll be asking certain questions, but they're trying to suss out from the audience who is easily manipulated, and they're the ones that then get on stage and they try and hypnotize and influence. And I think it's the same in some church services. They might not be doing it intentionally, but they're doing certain things to try and influence the congregation and make them act a certain way. And we're getting to the point now where the video went a bit wonky before. So special interest. Some kids in this country like to play football or soccer if you're in the States. And that is often played on a Sunday morning, which then clashes with church. So some mothers who take their kids to church will say, you can't play football, you have to go to church. Some would let the football happen so the kids stop going to church. And others would do some sort of compromise. It's like, okay, you don't have to go to church Sunday morning, but you have to go midweek or Sunday evening and midweek, and there'd be some happy compromise like that. INTJs are not easily manipulated. Yes, yes and no. Yes, I'd say I'm not fooled by the emotional stuff of manipulation, but I think being Christian and being INTJ and honest, I'm incredibly gullible. I'm getting better now, but I I don't naturally spot lies if I don't know it's a lie. Whereas a normal person can sometimes spot lies. So I can absolutely be fooled, but I do try to be on my guard. But yeah, the emotional manipulation, absolutely. An INTJ wouldn't. Other types, like I imagine an ISFJ or an ESFJ would feel like they have to go along with it. And maybe some other extroverted type, especially if they're Ps, they would just be caught up to it and think, oh, this is great. I'm loving this stuff. So choosing seats, I already said I like to sit at the front because of distractions. The further back you are, the more distractions there are. And if the sound's no good, if the speakers are only at the front, then of course you can't hear it so well at the back. Okay, what helps me stay? Okay, how could churches be more Aspie friendly? I'm going to now run through. I'll try and keep an eye on the comment. I'm going to run through the churches I've been to. There's a close to 100% chance that a good number of you would be not like some things I've got to say. I'm going to try and just say it from my viewpoint. I don't want to get too much into theology. The way I approach the Bible, I've already said one thing, which is I fully accept logically I could be wrong about anything about the Bible. That is to try and make me humble. So if you think something that's not how I see it, and you can back it up from the Bible, okay, I want to hear that, and I want to see, because maybe you're right. And what I believe now, in some ways, is different to 6-7 years ago, which was different to 6-7 years before that. And it's not some road to Damascus conversion like Paul. It's just like, oh, I see things from a different angle. The big way, in my mind, people get the Bible wrong is they don't look at the context. So the context is you need to think who's talking and to whom are they speaking? What are the conditions around that? What are the surrounding verses? That gives you the context. And then it may be when you see all that, clearly that is not applicable to you because that was for that particular group of people there and then. Now, sometimes you get people, I had a Christian lady one time, it wasn't even at church, but she was saying how microwaves were evil and they're bad for you and stuff. And microwaves may be bad for you. But she was trying to make it some biblical thing and it was just silly. And I don't even remember her argument now, but there's nothing in the Bible directly about microwave ovens. So it's like, I'm happy if you're showing me some scientific evidence, but don't try and make it a Bible thing. All right. So my church upbringing, and I'm not expecting many people to watch this, and I'm expecting plenty of people to tune out because why would this be interesting? And I will try and remember to keep going back to an Aspie viewpoint here. So we were brought up, my mum was a Christian. I think she said she was a Christian. She was brought up a Christian. I think she said when she was 6, she became a Christian. So every morning before school and on a Saturday morning, she had an old children's family Bible and she'd read the next story from that. So by the time I was 5, we'd probably read that Bible 3 or 4 times. So I knew from a kid's point of view, everything in the Bible. I'd heard it. I knew the stories. I knew the relationships. Now, I think that Bible had just 1 page for Revelation. So I didn't know the details about Revelation. Some of the other big prophet books, they were down to like 2 or 3 pages. So I didn't know all the details, but I knew the general stories and all that. Yes, we have to read in context. Yep, we agree on that. God's word is my passion. Good. Read through many times and learn more each time. Sorry, all these are by Truth Triumphant 4015, by the way. We will try to keep from commenting. It might be distracting. I just got distracted by the comment. It's fine to comment, especially later on, because I will try and answer all the questions. So at home, we knew the Bible. We were taught the Bible. That's fine. We were taught to pray. We'd pray when we went to bed, all that sort of stuff. We always said grace. Now, we started off, my various earliest memories were going to a home church. Now, I think home churches can be very, very good. You have 2 or 3, maybe 4 families meet up and they do church at home. And that could take many different forms. But if they're just reading Bible passages, that one of them might play guitar, they might just sing a song, whatever it is, that can be really, really good. And that's how it started off. And I think up to about the age of 3, we used to go to someone's house locally, maybe 2 or 3. I've got very, very vague memories of that. Can't tell you anything about the context. I was very young and there were other kids there my age. But then that grew and we used to meet in a much bigger house and they used to call it the Bible College. And what they'd done, they had this bigger house, but they'd take in older teenagers, maybe some people young in their 20s, and they could go to Bible college. And this would have been the mid to late 70s and early 80s. And I've got no idea if anyone there had any theological training or certificates or they're allowed to do it. But that was like then, it was still a very family feel thing. We'd be meeting in like a lounge. There'd be several families there. Something I do remember from that was they'd sometimes say, oh, what song should we sing? Has anyone got a song they'd like to sing? And there was a song called Rejoice. I think it's based on Philippians 4:4. And the words are basically, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And I could hardly speak at this time. But when they said, who wants a song? I'd say to my mum, rejoice, rejoice. And so I'll be trying to do that part of the verse. And then the chorus is simply rejoice, rejoice. And again, I'd say rejoice. And at that part, I would just shout as loud as I can, rejoice, because I knew that bit. So you imagine this toddler, they can sing that bit really loud. And every week I'd be asking that song. They wouldn't do it every song, but they didn't mind. Wouldn't do it every week, but they didn't mind doing it sometimes for me. I used to like that song. That's kind of my only memories there. Again, everyone was friendly. And that Bible college, as it was called, they would meet up maybe for, we have something in this country called Guy Fawkes Night, Bonfire Night. It's November the 5th. It's to do with Catholics trying to blow up the Protestant king. That's what we're actually remembering. But we have fireworks and stuff. So we used to go to the church in the garden. They'd have fireworks going off. We'd have horse chestnuts roasted, that sort of thing. So very, very nice. Very nice bunch of people. We'd sometimes all go on holiday together into the same... We'd all rent caravans in the same place. So that was all nice. Perfectly nice people as far as I was concerned. Looking back, they were heavy shepherding. I'll get to that shortly. They then started to meet in a hall because they were growing. They rented this hall. And for those that know the brethren, the way they're set up, they tend to sit in like an oval. So they're all facing each other. And that's kind of what they did here. I didn't know about the brethren, but that's what they did. They want brethren background. So there wasn't somebody at the front and everyone in rows behind them. Everyone was kind of facing everyone, but they had guitars and they had drums and there was like a dance space in the middle. So when they did the choruses, people would get up and dance and do various things. Not like dancing like a disco, but they'd be holding a hand and going around in circles and all this sort of stuff. And they'd be speaking in tongues after the songs. Now, I didn't want to dance. I would just want to sit on my dad's lap and just watch it or maybe draw a picture or something. But sometimes somebody would drag me out and I'd have to go dancing and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't at the time have an issue with people dancing in church. And it was nothing like you used to see church on television because there was drums, there was guitar, there was dancing, there was all this stuff going on. But they were very heavy shepherding. So they would tell you what you can and can't do. They would say who you can and can't date. So even if there was a couple of, say, teenagers or people in their early 20s in the church, they might, and they liked each other, they might decide, no, you can't date. We don't think you should. God's telling us you shouldn't date. And they would pair people up. And it was really, really bad. And my dad died when I was 10. And then my mum started dating someone who was a new Christian, a fair bit younger than her. And the leaders were like, oh, no, you shouldn't date those. You don't date. We don't think you should be dating just now. And then my mum, who was obviously a widow with 3 young kids, wanted to marry this guy. And they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. So they left that church. Just going to check comments, no more comments. So they left that church and we went to another church that was 10 miles away in Portsmouth. It was an Elim church, which is a Pentecostal church. And I remember going to church. My stepdad at the time used to smoke. So we'd be going to church. I'd be sitting behind him and he'd be smoking. Now, the smell of smoke never bothered me. So I know some people might think it's weird to be smoking on the way to church. But growing up in the 70s, everyone, I mean, as kids, we didn't smoke, but people smoked. If you went somewhere, they were smoking, go to a friend's house, the parents are smoking, go to the cinema. People used to smoke in the cinema, on a train, all the carriages, people smoke. After a while, they had a no smoking carriage, which later became, there's only one smoking carriage. Now there's no smoking. So it didn't bother me he smoked. Anyway, we went to this Elim church and it was still charismatic, but nothing like where we used to go. So there was a platform and people sat in rows looking at the platform. And their theology was different. They would sometimes say things that was contrary to what I'd heard. So initially I used to think, oh, this church is wrong because what they're saying isn't what I'd been taught. Then after a while, it dawned on me, how do I know that what I was told before was right? Maybe that was wrong and maybe they're right here. So that was the Elim church. It was always packed. It was okay. The talky stuff was pretty much interesting, I'd say. And I remember they had wooden panels up the front. And during the service, if I was getting bored, I suppose I thought, oh, it's a 2-hour service, 120 minutes. I'd count there are 80 pieces of wood. So therefore, each piece of wood is 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. So we're 30 minutes through. So I'd look and think, we've done 20 pieces of wood. And I used to just keep looking at the wood thinking, how far through have we got? Because sometimes it was very boring. Now, something that was unfortunate of that church, the church I grew up with, I had friends there. There were lots of kids my age. I'd grown up with them. We got on really well. We'd see them outside of church, and they were actual friends. This church in Pompey, there was no one my age, and the people in Portsmouth were different to the village I grew up in, and they were just a different sort of person. And so there was nobody there. I liked my grandparents were there. There was no one I could hang out with. And even if they did have friends there, it was 10 miles away, so I could never get to see them anyway. So that was that church. And then got married. Oh, and they embraced something called the Toronto Blessing. And they went from a packed church to just a handful of seats because they just went completely downhill and off the rails. We then moved to Leicester for a couple of years, and we went to Oadby Baptist Church. There's a village just outside Leicester called Oadby. And that was a really nice church. The people there were really, really nice. We used to help out. So my wife and I were in our late 20s. We used to help out with the kids thing on a Friday night. There was the Sunday service. And sometimes there'd be a midweek meeting at someone's house. Now, slight issues I had with that place. I just realized I didn't say anything about Aspie stuff in the other places, right? Something I had an issue with, partly because I believe the Bible, but also maybe because I'm Aspie, so it would bother me. The minister believed that the universe was billions of years old, so going along with science, and evolution was true, but God oversaw evolution. And I had a problem with that because by that time I'd already spent several years looking at creation versus evolution, because I used to be fine with evolution, but I'd looked into it and I'd from the viewpoint that, no, I think Genesis is right, 6 days, young universe. And that seemed really weird to me. Their music group musically were really, really tight and talented. The music leader wasn't a Christian. His wife was a Christian, went to the church, and the church was fine with a non-Christian leading the music group because he was so good at it. So it was a bit of a social club, but it was really, really good. We really liked it there, but we're only in Leicester for a couple of years. Yeah, the minister did not believe God's word. So that's an interesting thing. So there will be Christians. I'm going to go slightly sideways here, talk about theology. There will be some Christians that believe in an old earth. Some believe in the gap theory and some believe in a new earth. There's some Christians that believe you absolutely shouldn't do Christmas because it's all pagan. Other Christians will think Christmas is fine. It's fine to do Christmas. Some Christians are you should meet on Saturday. Some think you meet on Sunday. Some think it doesn't matter. And you can pick so many subjects and they can all choose Bible verses to back it up. You can get a Christian believing in the flat earth and they can show you Bible verses to back up the flat earth. You'll have other Christians believing in the general model we're taught of the spheres, and they can use Bible verses to show that it's spheres. You can use Bible verses to show it's okay to have gay marriage. You can use Bible verses to show gay marriage isn't okay. Now, of course, there's only one answer, and the real answer is when you look at things in context, you get the actual answer. But if you just pick out verses, then you can do certain things. That was a sidetrack. Yeah, I take God's creation week literal as well, absolutely. But to be Christian, should we not be following God's word in truth and all in one accord? Yes, but my current understanding of the Bible is it's not a salvation issue if you don't take creation literally. If for whatever reason you think the earth is billions of years old, you wouldn't lose your salvation because of that. It just means, from my viewpoint, you've got it wrong about creation. Anyway, Oadby, we then moved to Edinburgh. So we went to somewhere called, and I need a drink of water, sorry about this. What an amateur. So we went to, it's called Abbey Hill Baptist Church in Edinburgh, and it was very different to the Oadby Baptist Church. They're both called Baptist, but in Oadby Baptist Church, you didn't have to be baptized to be a member of the Baptist Church. In Abbey Hill, you did have to be baptized to be a member. No, I was baptized, but I never became a member because there were certain things about the church I didn't really like. That was It was all right. There was one family there in particular, I named them the McGills, and they were doing a lot in the community, especially the father, to do with the homelessness, drug addicts. He used to help people a lot. But the church in general, to me, actually seemed, not saying they are now, but they seemed quite inward facing, I guess. They never did anything outreach and community, apart from maybe once a year they might do an event, but I wasn't particularly aware of any evangelism type things apart from this McGill family. I think they're called McGill. I hope I've got it right after saying that. So it was when I was going there, and again, they taught something different to Oadby, that was different to Portsmouth, that was different to the village I grew up in. And I thought, this is just getting silly, how all these different ministers can say different things. How are we supposed to know what's true if they keep saying different things? And I'd read the Bible several times. So it was when I was going to that church that I remember praying. I was saying, right, I'm effectively going to forget everything I've heard in church. I'm just going to go over the Bible again. I want to see what the Bible actually says. And that gave me a much better footing for what to believe. Because if the minister says one thing and the Bible says something else, who do you believe? You should believe the Bible, but lots of people will believe the minister. Now, most Christians will say, oh, no, the Bible takes precedence. And the minister will say that, and yet the ministers will still contradict it. And there are various denominations and fringe Christian groups or non-Christian groups who say the Bible is absolutely what's important. That's the main thing. That's the authority. And then they say contradictory things, and you have to go along with the contradictions. And it's crazy. Anyway, so when I was there, I was speaking to some friends I'd met who live up in Inverkeithing. They do a lot of ministry work. And I said about how I'm struggling with church and I really don't like it. Oh, Aspie stuff. They had an organist, and I don't remember her name, so that's okay. And I think her playing wasn't quite right. She just wasn't keeping it in time, but she'd been the organist there for decades. And so the hymns were a bit difficult when it was the organ playing because she just wasn't doing it right. We all knew she wasn't doing it right, but they wouldn't stop her playing it because she'd always done it. So on the one hand, okay, that's nice. It's not a problem. On another hand, it meant the songs were never right when the organ was playing because it was just a bad organ. Socially, from an Aspie point of view, I don't remember any major issues there apart from what they were teaching and then what I was seeing in the Bible wasn't quite matching up, which would be true for any church. So that's not a slight on them. I met with these friends from Inverkeithing and I said about how I was struggling with church. And they said to me, well, why'd you go to church then? And I thought about it. I thought, yeah, that's a valid point. So I know in the Bible, it might be in Hebrews, but we're told to not, to continue meeting, not to give up on meeting with the brethren, etc. But how far do you take that? Supposing you're a Protestant and the only church in town was the Roman Catholic Church, would you go there or not? What if the only church was Latter-day Saints, so it was the Mormons? Or what if it was Kingdom Hall? What if your choice was Roman Catholic, Latter-day Saints, Mormons, or Kingdom Hall, Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you not go to church, or do you go to church, but it's one of these groups that a lot of Christians would think, yeah, but they're not really Christians? And the problem I had is once I got to know the Bible more and more, I found so many churches were just teaching nonsense. Not nonsense. They were teaching things that I thought aren't quite right. So we didn't go to church for a while. Then we tried lots of churches. And so we tried lots of churches in Edinburgh. I say lots, might have been 10. There's loads of churches in Edinburgh. There was at the time. And what I noticed was the hymn prayer sandwich. I thought, where are they getting this from? So nearly any church you walk into, there's a hymn prayer sandwich. So you go in, the minister will say something. They may or may not start with a prayer announcement. Then there'd pretty much be a hymn and a prayer and a hymn. Then there may be another prayer. Then there'd be a Bible reading. Then there'd be a sermon. Then there'd be another song. And then you go out. Say that's it. There might be communion sometimes in that. And I just started thinking, where do they get this from? And it wasn't that there's a problem with it. I don't mind, no problem at all with it being organised. I was just curious, how come all these different denominations are kind of doing the same pattern, even though their teachings are different? Oh, there's another church we went to for a while in Edinburgh called, we used to live on Wrestlerig Road. I think it's called Wrestlerig Parish Church. I think it was the parish church. And they were really liberal. I think it's supposed to be the oldest church in Edinburgh, or it was next to the oldest wall in Edinburgh. So the building was really nice. The people were nice enough, but there was no substance to the teaching, and it was super liberal. Then we tried the new parish church, which wasn't quite as bad. because that was, again, really local. We had the kids were young. We ended up going to Leith Free Church, which is a free church of Scotland. Free church in Scotland is different to a free church in England. In England, a free church means you don't belong to any denomination. You're a group of Christians, believers that meet up. In Scotland, a free church means you have the Church of Scotland, and the free church is a breakaway from that. And I think it's to do with, I could be wrong, it's to do with who's head of the church and that sort of thing, whether it's the monarch or not, basically. I think that's the difference. So we went there for several years. They were nice enough people. Sometimes it was quite dry, the air in there. They always try to shake your hand, so that was difficult for me. Fortunately, it was only ever about a third full. So although it wasn't good for the church, it was good for me because I could get enough space. We used to take it in turns when our kids were going into creche, because they're like 1 or 2 years old. We used to take it in turns, my wife and I, to go into creche and help out. You have to get checked out that you're not a dodgy character, of course. So we used to help out there. And they'd have the speaker in the creche. You could hear the sermon. It was only the sermon I really liked. But there'd be other mothers in the creche, and they might be talking to each other or trying to talk to me. Which, okay, it's nice and polite, but I'm actually trying to listen to the sermon. And I couldn't listen to the sermon. And I guess maybe it was good for them as mothers to have a chance to chat and catch up. So that's fine. But I used to find that difficult. Whereas if I was in creche and everyone in creche was just listening to the sermon and dealing with the kids as you needed to, that would have suited me a bit better. But that was face blindness here. The very first sermon I went to, or the first sermon they had first sermon I went to, sitting near the front, the minister did his spiel. So he was on stage for an hour or so, went out back to the for a coffee, and the minister came and spoke to us. And I said to him, he said to me, "Hi, how are you?" I said some stuff, and I said to him, "So what do you do?" And even though I'd been looking at him for over an hour, went to get a coffee, I didn't know that was the guy I'd been looking at on stage for an hour. It was like, I was the minister. I was on stage. Like, oh, was that you? Okay. So that was quite funny. So there are no, I think Leith Free Church doesn't go anymore. If it does, certainly not in that building. So that was that there. And then we moved down here. We're currently in Cheshire. The local town, I think they've got maybe 6 churches. I've tried 3 or 4 of them. None of them are right. Theologically, I mean, they're not saying they're all off the wall, but there's like not going to get anything from it. Plus, I struggle with a lot of things they're doing with church. One of the church buildings is nice. I think it's called St. Mary's. And it's a nice old building. It's got a stone floor. When you go in there, it's nice and cold. But they have lots of crucifixes up. So they have the cross with Jesus hanging on the cross. And as a general rule, this is just a general rule, but Protestant churches tend to have the cross without Jesus on because he's risen. And Catholic churches tend to have the cross with Jesus still on it. So I actually asked somebody there, is this Catholic or Protestant? I said, oh no, it's Protestant. So I guess it was maybe High Protestant or something. So that was interesting. Now, for a church, I've not actually been to church regularly for years. My wife and kids go, but I just struggle so much with different things. It's everything apart from the sermon. I find all those parts difficult. And then trying to find a church where the sermons are good is just really, really hard for me. So because of Aspie reasons, I don't go to church. Now I'm going to read the comments and I'm going to tell you something controversial, which people are going to hate. But from an Aspie point of view, there's one more place I've been, and it was the best from a sensory point of view. So where did I get up to? I will try to quick comment. Sorry to bother. No, you can type. You're okay. I have no idea how many people are watching. Is there a number here? There's currently 1 person watching, I think. I don't know if that's true. So it might be just me and you here, and it might be nobody watching this on catch up. So you should maybe chat away. It might only ever be me or you. Most Protestants have returned to the mother church. Luther would turn over and integrate. Yes, there's certainly been a call by the Roman Catholic Church for our brothers to return home, return to Rome. There's a lot of that going on. And if you don't know the Bible, you can get caught up in that. Now, please don't leave when I'm about to say this thing I'm about to say. I've said before, I could be wrong about anything I believe, and that is fine. So I'm happy to sit on a train, or I don't go to bus stops much, but I could be seeing somebody, I've never seen them before, won't see them again, and I'm happy to get talking about God and theology in the Bible. So if I'm next to, I've had good conversation with Sikhs, Roman Catholics and Muslims tend not to talk to me so much. whatever their beliefs, I'm happy to talk to them, and I'm happy them to do most of the talking, and we'll have a good conversation. I won't try and convert them. I will ask questions about what they believe and why. And if they say the Bible's their main thing, that's great. I'll ask certain things about the Bible. So in my time, I've known quite a few through work and other things, Jehovah's Witnesses. And where we live now, there is a Kingdom Hall not too far away. So I thought I'm going to go to the Kingdom Hall for a while. Not because I believe their theology, and I know a lot about their teachings. I've done a lot of research into their background and their beliefs and how they've changed their mind about things over the years. But I thought there's always a chance I better strike up a conversation with somebody. But I thought I've got to be really just nice and gentle and just go to the services. So the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, theologically, just so you know, I don't agree with them. I would say there's one issue. If they change one issue, they'd be okay. Now, you might be thinking there's loads of things that JWs get wrong. The one issue I have with them is they've got something called the governing body, and they decide what the Bible means. And they will tell you what the Bible means. And if you could take away that, then all the things they have wrong would just fall down, and they could just have the Bible. But because the governing bodies say you can't have blood transfusion, you can't have blood transfusions, you can't celebrate birthdays, you can't celebrate Christmas. Jesus is the Archangel Michael. And there's loads of things that mainstream Christians wouldn't necessarily agree with or go along with. But all that is because the governing body said it. The governing bodies currently say Jesus came back in 1914 in spiritual form. That's a change. They used to say it was 1799, but they changed it to 1918, the end of World War One. So it's the governing body that's wrong. Anyway, so I went there. So let me tell you about this from an Aspie point of view. Every Kingdom Hall has basically the same service on a Sunday and midweek. So they will all, my understanding is they will all sing, wherever you are in Britain or in the world, they all sing the same songs. And they will start, supposing it starts at 10 o'clock, it might be 10 till 11:30, say, or 12. I don't remember the timings, but it was very regimented. So they would start on time. They tear up parts of the Bible, tear it out. They all use it in the beginning till they got their own. Yes, they do have their own. They have the New World Translation, which is a problem. So they have changed things in it. But even from the New World Translation, you can still show them certain things about Jesus and about God. And I've read plenty of stories of JWs who, for whatever reason, read something in the Bible, and then from that, they left the organization. But I'm talking Aspie here. From an Aspie point of view, something that I used to dislike massively about some churches, the church service might start at 10, and at 10:05, someone would go on the stage and say, can we please take our seats now? And I'll be sitting there thinking, you're supposed to start at 10. And if the Kingdom Hall started at 10, at 10 o'clock, it started. You were all in your seats. And you could almost set your watch by, there'd be a prayer, there'd be a talky bit, there'd be this thing, there'd be these songs, and they absolutely kept everything on the money, and they'd ask questions and then people can answer. But even that was very, very regimented, as in how long each thing took. So the way the service was ran was very good. The atmosphere, as in the air quality, was very good. The people were friendly enough. To be fair, nearly every church you go to, people will be friendly. I also go to chess. People are friendly there. So for someone to say, oh, we know we're God's people because we're so friendly and nice to each other, absolutely doesn't hold up, because loads of clubs are friendly. So they organisationally were very, very good. And the fact that you could go on holiday to Cornwall or Scotland and you would just carry on the teachings, because every single Kingdom Hall was doing exactly the same thing. And all of that I said there, there's nothing wrong with any of that. And from an Aspie point of view, it works really, really well. The thing that didn't work well was obviously the content of the songs, a lot of their songs, and the content of what they did. So they would read the Bible, that part's fine, but then they would tell you what it means. They'd ask questions they'll ask a question. So what happened with this bit here? What do you think that meant? But everyone had a book that had the answers in effectively. So that part of it was very, very sad. But if of all the various religions, I've seen stats from America, and it's probably the same all over the West, Jehovah's Witnesses has the lowest retention rates. So of everyone who's brought up in the religion, 2/3 of them leave by the time they're adults. So it's really hard for them to keep hold of people. And one of the reasons is the internet. So now with the internet, any JW who thinks, I wonder if that's true, just a bit of research, they can actually find out the other side. So they obviously encourage Jehovah's Witnesses, don't go online because you might meet an apostate who says things that are lies. If you want to research something that's good to research, use jw.org and we've got the answers for you. So I went there for about 8-9 months. I actually stopped just before COVID hit. And I made some friends. I had some good conversations, good candid conversations. I was very good. I didn't answer questions. I didn't cause any problems there. And they knew that I wasn't a JW, but equally I wasn't trying to stir things up. Now, if any of you ever want to witness to a Jehovah's Witness, or probably a Roman Catholic is true, but Jehovah's Witness, here's my tip for you. And I think it's absolutely true. Just try and look at what the Bible says. So don't try and argue about them, about their various beliefs you disagree with. Like, don't try and argue Jesus isn't Michael. Don't try and argue about the blood or this, that, and the other. Don't try and argue that they're a cult, because their intellectual shutters just go down and you've lost the conversation. But most JWs are happy to look at the Bible. So you can look at the Bible, look at it in context without even saying to them, but you teach that. It's just like, this is what the Bible says. And so I've had Bible studies with 2 or 3 different JWs over the years, and they've always been very good. And they've always said how much they enjoy them. And like, wow, that was really good. And they're always amazed how someone who's not a JW can know the Bible so well. And like, there'd be things like, they don't believe in a literal hell. They believe when you die, you're dead, unless you go to the paradise earth. And most Christian churches teach that there is a hell, a place of fire and brimstone, etc. And there's various flavors of that. I think the Seventh-day Adventists, I think they're nihilist as well. But again, you don't need to go down that route. And if it comes up, then you can see, well, what does the Bible actually say about this in context? You can just have very nice conversations, and you don't need to convert them. You just need to be a stone in their shoe. And it might be you have a conversation on a train with a JW, nice conversation about the Bible. You can even use their Bible, and you might just get something going through the head. So a story I heard from an ex-JW, they were an elder, and they had to do a talk on a certain chapter in Romans. And they thought, I've never actually studied Romans. So they read all of Romans and then read it again and again. Then they met with some of their elder friends from the congregation and talked about Romans. And they concluded that the Watchtower, based on Romans, wasn't who they said they were, and they left. And that was from their version of the Bible. So it's not worth arguing the toss about their literature. Try and ignore their literature. Just look at what the Bible says. Anyway, sorry, let's look at the comments. Going to try to wake them up is admirable. They're people. They're just people. Now, there are people in all. I sincerely believe some people going to Kingdom Halls are Christian, from my understanding of what a Christian is, and they will be very uncomfortable, and they will be leaving in the near future. It's the same as I think in Roman Catholic churches, there will be some people that I consider Christian, but again, they'll be uncomfortable and they will be leaving. And it's just a process. I know some people have a massive conversion. Other people, it's just little things, get them thinking over time. They look into it, and it's just try and be nice. They're people. If you look at Jesus in the New Testament, he used to go really hard against the scribes and the Pharisees and the teachers, but he was nice to the taxmen and the prostitutes and the layman, the normal people, everyday person. He was nice to them. Those people that were being led astray by the Pharisees, he was nice to them, and it was the Pharisees that he was berating. So they're just people that want. Now, obviously, some of them, for any church, I'd say it's a social club for some people. There are some people that go to church that know they're not Christian, they don't actually believe it, but they've got friends there. Right. Well, I think truth triumphant is it's just me and you in the room. Isn't that nice? God made his word so simple, even a ploughboy could understand. I would agree with that. Theologians in most cases are modern day scribes and Pharisees. I would agree with that. I think you can read the Bible at face value and it's fine. Let's put it this way. If you read the Bible at face value and you read Genesis and you thought God made everything in 6 days, supposing he didn't really, supposing it was evolution, but if you believed it was 6 days, there's no way you'd get judged by that, by God. God wouldn't mark you down for that because you believed what was in the Bible literally. So if you just believe everything in the Bible literally, then you're on safe ground. Now, you do get the prophets, and they might have a dream or a vision. That is clearly a dream or a vision. And you get some parables from Jesus, and Jesus then told a parable. So you know, okay, that's a parable. It's not a literal thing that happened. So there are times it's marked out, this isn't literal, and other times this is literal. I am, Seventh Advent. Okay, but Jesus was Michael before he came to earth. Also, death is sleep until the resurrection. Bible says David is still asleep in the grave. So the Seventh-day Adventist, the Charles Taze Russell, who started what became the Watchtower Jehovah's Witnesses, he came from the Seventh-day Adventists. So in his early literature, he used to rail on Christendom and the Roman Catholic churches, but he used to talk about his brothers, the Seventh-day Adventists. So that is, I was aware that he got his teachings of hell from the Seventh-day Adventists. And I'm aware about this verse as well. Yes, Jesus knew he had a chance with the common people, the other not so much. Amen. Yes. So, given it's just me and you in here, let me just check. Yeah, I think it's just me and you. Have you, a lot of splinter groups? There are lots of splinter groups, and that is very sad. There's someone I saw on YouTube 3 or 4 years ago, and he was talking about, without being judgmental, he went over about 80 different denominations and what they taught about might have been baptism. Because there's loads of different flavors regarding baptism. Some would teach you have to be baptized to be saved. Others, you don't, but you should be baptized. Some would be christening is fine. Some would be christening, no, it has to be believer's baptism. Some are full immersion. Some are a bit of water on the head, fine. So there's loads of different flavors. So he went through what they all believed, just factually. And what I came away thinking was, it is just so sad how splintered this whole thing is. And it's silly. I think a lot of people, to be fair, would go to a local church and it's like, they know it's imperfect. They don't agree with everything, but they get a chance to meet up with fellow believers. And that's just the way it is. All right. I think after doing a bad first recording, then this recording, given it's just me and you in the house, which is fine, it's nice to meet you. Feel free to ask any Aspie questions. Otherwise, I think I'm going to stop this. And then in a month's time, I'll see if anyone actually watched this. If anyone does watch this, give me some ideas for other things you want to talk about. This is supposed to be an Ask an Aspie Anything, not just church. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. All right, I'm going to stop there then. Thank you very much for anyone who watches this. They go for the social clubs too many times. Absolutely. Absolutely. Many Christians do. And it's like I was saying about chess, and I've been in other clubs before. People there are friendly and nice. So one of their arguments of the JWs and other groups is we're really friendly. We look out for each other. People in the chess club do as well. That is absolutely not an argument. If I met you in real life, it'd be a lot easier to have a conversation with you. But any of your beliefs, I can see this part of the Bible backs out that part of the Bible. Okay, what about that in context? Right, I'm going to go. If anyone watches this on catch up, thank you very much for watching. Have a nice few weeks before I happen to do a live stream again, if I do another one. Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Love you, brother. Oh, I'm so thankful to have this time to chat. Hey, well, maybe I'll come back and do another one sometime. Okay. Thanks. Oh, let me put the video up again. Okay, thanks. Bye.